What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane. That's Cole Adshaw. This is not what I wanted to be doing on the second Thursday of March Madness. St. John's unfortunately lost this past weekend against Arkansas, 75-66, ending their magical season. But there is some good news to help us turn the page and head towards the offseason. A quick recruiting commitment from Joson Sanon from Arizona State helps us kind of brighten our mood, kind of look past this magical season. I don't know, Cole, are you over it yet?
No, still not over it. Incredibly depressed. I got my last piece of Johnny's swag delivered on Monday. Great timing right after the season's over. So I figured I would wear it and get some use out of it today. St. John's basketball, restore the feeling. I'm still not quite sure what feeling has been restored there. If it's being on top of the basketball world, Big East champions, 2 ways, regular season and conference tournament, being on the lips of the entire basketball world, prognosticators picking us to make deep runs into March Madness, or if it's the feeling that I've had for the 20 plus years of every other year of my St. John's fandom, that's having my still beating heart ripped out of my chest and kicked across the floor. Obviously, I kid. We go back to what we said after the Big East conference tournament win, where I said, hopefully these kids just have time when the season ends to look back and reflect on everything they accomplished over the course of this year. RJ Lewis being Big East Player of the Year, what the team did, winning the championship of the Big East those 2 ways, that puts them in the pantheon of St. John's elites, an incredible performance. But that can't excuse the fact that when you're a 2 seed, you're expected to make the Sweet 16. When you're a 2 seed and you're facing the 10 seed that you're 5.5, 6.5 point favorites, you should be able to win that game. Unfortunately, we saved our worst shooting performance of the season for last, and now we had to pack our bags and never get to see Kadari Richmond or Aaron Scott or Davon Smith put on that jersey again. It's a crying shame.
Yeah, it all ends so abruptly, and you're right. You hope the kids are able to look back and cherish those moments. It's certainly hard to appreciate it right after the fact as a fan, and I think as time does heal it, we'll be able to look back at this season as, to me, nothing but a success. What you said is true. We had expectations to go far in the tournament, and when you're a 2 seed, you are expected to advance past the second round and get to the second weekend. We weren't able to do that. I didn't love the matchup from the get-go. I think getting an underachieving, high major team with just as much athleticism as us, more length than us, more on-paper talent, if you would have asked prognosticators before the season, that is somewhat of a tough draw. But, hell, like you said, we picked a bad night to have our worst shooting night of the season. Even with that, we were right there at the end, even with some foul call. I'm not going to say we got the very short end of the foul calls. I think both teams were getting fouls called left and right. It's just how they happen. And when you foul out your team star player, our engine to how we operate at the end of the games, didn't have him to close that game, or we needed a closer. We still had a chance down 2 with 4 minutes left. Zuby underneath the basket and wasn't able to convert, and we were never able to get over that hump. Still a game we're in from start to finish, just never seemingly in control. Never felt right, honestly, from the get-go. It's just they get off to a lead. We've seen that before. We jump back, take that lead, and couldn't hold that going into half, and I thought we lost a great opportunity then. Still, a magical season. So many ups, little downs. Unfortunately, it ends on a down. Would have loved been watching them tonight, but like I said, Rick Pitino wasted no time to correct some faults of this past season's roster, perhaps. Goes out and signs Joson Sanon, a kid who is known most for his ability to shoot the basketball. We'll see how the rest of the roster turns up, whether more guys leave. There hasn't been any departures yet from the transfer side leaving St. John's. There has been some other rumors of some big-time targets we are looking at. We'll be interested to see how that shapes up, but do you have any early thoughts on our newest addition from Arizona State?
Yeah, certainly could have used Josan against Arkansas while we were shooting 2 for 22 from the 3-point. Before we get to Josan and how excited I am for bringing in a big get on the transfer portal, I don't want to skip away from the Arkansas game. Obviously talking about how they shot from the field, 28% from the field, 9% from 3-point. Missing 9 free throws, only 5 assists on 21 made baskets. Just, you're not going to win games like that, especially like you said, against elite level players. Calipari has, like you said, a more stacked roster as far as 5-star recruiting players go. DJ Wagner and Boogie Flan, I thought both, despite not shooting particularly well, were able to basically get past our guards at will, especially with Kadari and Sim mostly on the bench. I wanted to ask you before we move on to Josan, what did you make of RJ being glued to the bench for the last 5 minutes of the game? As a fellow coach, maybe not with as much prestige as Rick
No,
Pitino, but
not quite. I think it sucks that it's the talking point now, and like, it's almost overshadowing such a wonderful season by a wonderful kid. I mean, if it wasn't for his own teammate, he was the Big East most improved player, and he was the Big East most outstanding player in the regular season and the tournament. And he finished the season up until that point on a high mark. He was shooting so well, he was playing so well. He was having a really rough game. And if you were going to ask me my opinion about how St. John's wins at the end, I would tell you to have him on the court is what I would suggest to do. That would be my opinion, and I think many people would agree. But I also agree stronger than that I believe in the coach's perspective. And there's things we're not privy to, and maybe they don't know more than us in every sense. I'm not going to tell a fan he's wrong about everything, but they do see more things than we see, and they are more privy to what's going on in the game. And you can't tell me that there's no situation where benching him is the appropriate thing to do. And what that situation is we're not sure. If he had told him to do things 6 times throughout the game, and that 7th time he wasn't going to let it happen again, so he decided to bench him at that point, we're not sure. It sucks because it has really overshadowed every positive thing up until that point. It's been the talking point for, I'm sure, opposing coaches. It's been the talking point for media. Will RJ come back? Is this a rift that he can get over? I think that's a whole bunch of, just media nonsense. I think a coach and a player are more in tune than everything else going on around it, and they'll be able to have honest discussions about it. Could it rub RJ the wrong way and his family the wrong way? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to be the decision that's going to run him out of St. John's. I think it's either pro or come back. Maybe I'm straddling the line two different ways there, Cole, and I'm not picking a side. If you asked me to play him, I'd say play him. But I'm not sitting here killing Pitino for the decision either.
And to his credit, RJ handled everything post-game like an absolute man. Like you said, wonderful kid who deserves every accolade that he received for how he played through the course of the season. Shame it ended the way it did, but hopefully that's not the end of his St. John's tenure. So we can close the book on the 24-25 team and open the book on the 25-26 team. Start talking about Joson Sanon and what an amazing acquisition this is. 48 hours into the start of transfer portal madness.
Yeah, they must have had their finger on the pulse of the fan base last offseason. How antsy the St. John's Twitter sphere were to get if we get into April without getting our first transfer pickup. And
God
Rick
forbid.
wasted no time. Josan, 6'5", top 25 recruit out of high school, out of the Boston area. So a local kid coming back home to the Northeast. I'm sure Providence and UConn fans won't be too excited to see him. Cole, have you had the transfer portal YouTube mixtape soundtrack ingrained in your head yet? And if so, what do you think about Josan?
Oh, you know it. I've watched all 7 minutes of that beat playing on repeat nonstop. Super pumped about Josan. Currently the 10th overall transfer portal prospect on 247 and the 15th ranked prospect by Evan Maya. Obviously, a lot to change. A lot of players who aren't yet in the portal yet, but awesome to know that where we stand right now, he's thought of so highly. Absolute bucket. Kid can fill it up. Can shoot the 3, which, like I said earlier, with how we performed against Arkansas, would have loved to have him on this year's roster. Pat has awesome graphics as always. We can talk about some of his stats, but like I broke down some of like the specific key games and how he performed in some of them. We can talk about later. Also, just some awesome quotes from his agent. I'm not sure if you were able to see that, or from Josan himself. Josan's agent, Derek Malloy, said, "New York City, Madison Square Garden, Rick Pitino. If we weren't the first to take it, I'd envy the person who did." And Josan was talking about hard work and playing for Rick Pitino. And he said, Pitino's going to push you to work hard. I want to show him I'm the hardest working player. We don't even need to talk about the stats. We don't even need to talk about it being a dead-eye three-point shooter. Just give me a kid with that type of attitude and put him with Rick Pitino, who's going to run him through those personal player progression sessions. Sign me up.
Does Josan know that he's joining a team with Zubi Ejiofor and Ayo? Two of the most renowned, hardest workers Coach Pitino's ever seen. I mean, he's got a serious hill to climb if that's his goal. But what a goal to have, and what a great thing to hear from a kid. Hopefully, it's not just lip service, and that's the type of kid he is, and he's going to work hard. The rep as a shooter is there. What do you think of the form from watching the highlights?
Looked pretty, looked great form. He really knows how to get to his spots on the court, just like looking at some strength. He's great on the catch and shoot. If you can have him with a real point guard who can distribute, he's going to be deadly. He's got a really great mid-range game. He's got two spots specifically that college basketball scouting video showed, one from the right elbow and another one along the right baseline, where he shoots 45% and 48% respectively. He's also got a great ability to get to the rim and finish at the rim. Zach Braziller in his write-up had a quote from a D1 coach who said he's a breakdown guard similar to Davon Smith as far as getting downhill, getting to his shot.
Yeah, that surprised me. I saw that same quote. I mean, Davon's a 6-foot blur, and he's more of a 6'5" shooting guard. This is a D1 coach saying it, seen him more than I have. The one thing I did see was he didn't get to the rim that often. Less than 10% of his shots were at the rim, and struggled a little bit there for a guy his size. Hopefully that's something he can add with the help of Pitino. We need to be able to get to the rim, finish there through contact, and get to the free throw line. Let me pull up that shooting splits. We'll see just exactly how much he did get to the free throw line. 45 makes on the year, 63 attempts, 71% from the free throw line for the season. So a little bit more than twice a game for free throw attempts is not terrible for a freshman guard, but a guy who you expect to be a scorer and a starter. Hopefully you can increase that, get to closer to 3 or 4 attempts a game, and at that 71%, you'd expect that to be a little bit better with the shooting rep he has. Hopefully you can get that close to 80%. Those would be free points at the basket. You mentioned his ability to get to his spot. Impressive, I thought, his ability to shoot off the dribble. Getting not only in like semi-transition pull-ups, but mid-range pull-ups as well, off the dribble, getting into his shot, creating it for himself. You could see that's a strength of his. Obviously, we hope to bring in a point guard if we don't get that extra year from Davon, a point guard who can distribute, get into the paint, make plays for others. And we need guys who can spot up, not only catch and shoot, but then catch and create off that kick. And hopefully Josan's one of those. We'll see if our other guards stick close, but I think Simeon kind of fits that same mold, a guy who can catch, spot up, shoot from off the catch, or create for himself a little bit, but not so much for others. So we're going to need to see some playmakers, I think, join this team. Looking at these splits, you can see he had kind of a two really hot stretches and a cold one in between. Could coincide a little bit with his injury he got around January, but came out of the gates in November and December super hot from three. 52% in 8 games in November is unheard of. 40% in December in 4 games, a little bit cooler, but still you'll take that any month of the season. And then that January, February stretch, only 11 games. Like we said, dealing with an injury. He was 10 for 47 from 3 during that stretch. Again, finished the season strong, 7 for 17 in the month of March to bring his percentage back up. So 3 months, he's shooting at an elite level. 2 months, not so much. But that larger sampling is up at that elite level. So you hope he could be closer to that 40% three-point shooter than that 30% he was when he wasn't.
Yeah, and I'll shout out Richie from the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. He was a little depressed. He was a little depressed over the loss of Josan. Maybe we need to send him some lorazepam over out west down there. But he basically broke down Josan's season into 3 different pieces. And that's kind of what you have shown here on this graphic. And that's the beginning of the regular season, the non-conference portion, which is the first 11 games, which he calls sort of the healthy segment. So it's the first 11 games, then he gets hurts his foot in mid to late December. And then he has about a month between then and mid to late January, we only plays 1 game. Then he's still not fully healthy, comes back for conference play, you're sort of displaying that there between January and February. And then he gets fully healthy for sort of the last stretch run then of their conference play, which was really the last 5 games. So Richie had some great stats that I ripped from his podcast. Through the first 11 games of non-conference play, he was averaging 27.8 minutes a game coming off the bench, 14 points per game, 51.8 field goal percentage, 50.9 3-point percentage. Then that second piece, when he's fully healthy towards the end of the season, 39 minutes, he's now earned a starter role, 18.8 points per game, 47.3 field goal percentage. His 3-point percentage drops down to 30.4, but he's filling it up, 19 points a game. I also looked at his game by game stats. He had 5 great performances against 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. So you see him playing against really high level teams, performing really well. Obviously then plays in the Big 12. We know he's going to be able to translate to the Big East. So those 5 games, he put up 19 and 5 boards at Arizona, 16 points and 4 rebounds against Texas Tech, 18 rebounds, 5 boards, 4 assists against BYU. And then in the non-conference beginning of the season, 19 points and 2 rebounds against St. Mary's, 19 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists against New Mexico.
Cool. Bring in the goods, man. Bring in the deets. That's awesome stuff. Thank you. And that's, like you said, 5 teams that are NCAA tournament teams. A couple of them still playing. So not shying away from the toughest competition. We'll have to dig deeper as the offseason goes, what exactly happened in that midseason, if he was missing shots, if he was taking tough ones, if it was the injury holding him back. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we'll never have to worry about it. But we do see at his best what he's capable of. Coming out of the gates, guns blazing and finishing strong. This next draft I got here is his final 5 games of the season. 18 points, 28 points, 19 points, 16 points, 13 points. And in this time, he did a little differently than he did coming out of the gates. He was more 2-point oriented. 5 twos, 4 twos, 5 for 7 from 2, 7 for 15 from 2, 7 for 11 from 2. So a different array of baskets to finish the season. Wasn't as reliant as a 3-point shot. 7 rebounds in his last game was the second most he's had of his career. Hopefully that's an indication that he's taken a stronger approach there. Finished the season with games of 4 rebounds, 5 rebounds, another one with 5 rebounds. So if he could be around 5 boards next year, that'd be great. We'll have to see how this roster gets put back together. Like I said, I think in a perfect world, some of the names we've heard, RJ is back, Zuby's back, and Bryce Hopkins is one of our biggest targets. Thinking of those 3 guys, that would be your 3, 4, and 5. And you wouldn't have to think twice about it. And we'll have to find a point guard. Josan, Sim, they'd be competing for that 2 spot right there. I don't think you'd play both of them together without a point guard. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I think, honestly, ideally, in a perfect world, well, maybe I won't say a perfect world, because in a perfect world, we're getting Bryce Hopkins and RJ's coming back. But if you were just to ask me, Josan, what his best fit would be, I think I'd like to see him next to 2 guards who could really get in the paint and distribute, and he would play kind of more of a 3. I think he's got the size for that. But obviously, we hope RJ's back. We hope Bryce is here. So those positions would kind of be occupied. But if Josan can handle the 2 as a starting 2, I think we're in a great spot to continue to build the roster. We'll see. Point guard, power forward. News on RJ. That's on the docket next.
How much money does Mike Rapoli have to throw at this roster this year? God bless him. Just keep printing money. Keep donating to the Flat Top Fund and to Storm Marketing. Get this roster fleshed out.
We got to make sure we root hard for him come the Derby Stakes and the Triple Crown, and hopefully he pulls up some solid purses and just throws them right to that NIL fund. Horses there, horses here. You can see his per 40 minutes, 17 points. 5 rebounds, only an assist and a half. So obviously Cole knows me. You guys know me. I want a guy who can distribute and play make a little bit more than that. But if you're a scorer and you got guys around you who are playmakers, then that can fall on someone else's lap. But we'll see if that gets developed as he grows and becomes more mature as a basketball player. Anything else stand out to you, Cole?
The only other thing I saw called out as far as a weakness goes is his defense. But then you hear those quotes about him wanting to be a hard worker. Rick Pitino and how much emphasis he's going to put on the defensive end. if any kid's going to make massive strides, if any kid's struggling on the defensive end, Rick Pitino is going to build that out of them and build them up on the defensive end. So it doesn't seem like a huge concern for me. Obviously, the athleticism, the height is there. So I think he'll make massive strides defensively.
Yeah, he's obviously gonna stress it. We know how much Pitino does that. The 0.7 steals, it's not eye opening. There were 3 guys on Arizona State who did average more than a steal a game, so it's not like they weren't playing aggressive defensively. We'll see if he can bump that up. But like you said, he's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and now he's got a coach who's gonna really push it to get the best out of him. Anybody on the transfer portal wish list years who's not Bryce Hopkins?
Silas Demery from Georgia hopped in a couple hours ago. I mean, that's a big name I would love to see us get involved with. Obviously, we saw him play against Georgia. It obviously is a little familiar, at least, with St. John's campus from the Mike Anderson days, but we'll see if we get involved there. Yeah, I mean, like you said, a distributing point guard, I think, is really important to be able to find shooters like Josan, like Sim. If we have a guy who can create, I think that's a huge hole I see right now on this roster that we need fill.
Yep, I've always been a big fan of Nick Boyd. He's back in the portal. He's probably about 25 years old now at this point, from San Diego State, but he's from the New York area. Lefty, solid guard, can play the 1 or the 2, can shoot it, can defend a couple of different positions. I'd love to be in it with him. I think we need another guard with him to come in. Not that I don't think he could handle the point, but I think we want someone who can really kind of push the pace a little bit more. Like you said, Silas would be a great get. We've been rumored to be on him. I think the competition will be stiff. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I think we heard today that St. John's isn't seriously considering Cam Williams, Greg Williams, former Johnny's younger brother, who I'm a huge fan of. Greg and his brother Cam. I thought Cam looked like an awesome transfer prospect. Great shooting numbers, good size, athleticism, awesome around the margins, over a steal, over a block, shoots 63% from 2. I mean, I got to stop talking now because I'm going to disappoint myself. A sophomore with room to grow, comes from a great family, St. John's pedigree. I say we go back after him, guys, but that's just me. Yeah, but interesting. I mean, in this college basketball free agency, like I was saying, you, Cole,
It's fun.
we seem to be on the right side of it, and I do feel bad for some teams. I'm sure there's some fans that are like, these next few months are just going to suck. Just pour energy, and then just hope you get like some scraps at the end where other guys are like, who are we going to throw a bag at today and be involved with? And we seem to be on the better half of that, thankfully, and hopefully that will be the case forever. So, it's fun now, but I do feel for those poverty programs. I know you don't, Paul.
No, not
I know you don't.
Hide your money, y'all. There's poor people around.
Well, this has been the 5th season, Cole. The 5th season of the Red Storm Rap Reaction podcast. Unfortunately, the regular season has come to an end, but like we just said, we've got a few weeks of excitement, a few months of excitement. We'll be keeping you in tow. And congrats to Dave and his wife on their upcoming newest Johnny. Congrats to all the fans for a heck of a season. Keep pouring the content out. Keep coming on Twitter. Keep commenting, liking, subscribing, helping us push this forward to other St. John's fans. Can't thank you guys enough. Cole, can't thank you enough. Sean enough. Everybody out there who helps make this possible. To Rick Pitino for making this possible. To Father Shanley for making this possible. For Kadari Richmond. For Aaron Scott. For Davon Smith for making this possible. For the whole rest of the St. John's team from this year. I'm Pat Kane. That's Cole Atshaw. This has been the Red Storm Rap Reaction Podcast. Peace.